Welcome, Juventini, to the All Juve cast, and it is Champions League match day. And this is a competition that naturally brings up so many nerves and bad memories and pain. Like, it's just been one of those tournaments for Juventini, and it's bright and early here. I'm still positive. I've been saying it for a while now that I believe Juve will make it through. But good morning to my guests, Josh and Lewis. How do you guys feel today on this Champions League match day?
Um, yeah, I feel a little nervous as I do on every Champions League match day, but overall, I feel good considering we got the win. A little disappointed by the murder result yesterday, but focusing on Juventus.
Yeah, and Atalanta played well, just missing that finish there, eh? And just
Yeah.
that final third. Yeah, just no goals. It's frustrating. It's frustrating, and I
Yeah.
know that we can talk about that too. The race, whatnot. Obviously, the focus will be mostly on Champions League, but we will talk about that. Josh, how are you feeling today?
I'm similar. I'm confident because I believe we have like everything to turn over a 2-1 against Porto, but like Juve does not make anything easy
Yeah.
ever for themselves. So I'm prepared to lose my voice in full stress today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got some guys joining us right out of the hop here. Antonio, have a good one, guys. Trying to follow from work. Lewis, get the beers in the cooler for
Already
tonight.
started this morning. Already started.
And then David Fafuro, ciao, everyone. Trying to follow from work as well. I appreciate the commitment, guys, and the support. I love that. Lewis, going for the beers again. You just came back from a friend's stag, did you not?
Yes, I was at a bachelor party. I made everyone sit and drink and watch the Juventus game with me, which I think was more entertaining for everyone to watch me watch the game than the actual game. But
well, hey, the nice thing for you is that it wasn't a sleeper and they played like the game of the season for them, because if you would have put that on and then all of a sudden it's just that slow drab play, it would have been like, dude, this is your team. But it's nice you got to see them pump Lazio.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes were good for pounding some beers to get ready for the bachelor party itself. So, it was a win-win.
Yeah, there you go. So we were slated to also have a Porto guest on it, but we weren't able to line up the schedules, which is a shame. He joined us on the first one. It was interesting to get their take on this particular match. We will eventually get into the projected lineups, everything like that. But I wanted to start off talking about just the team in general. You guys had a few things you wanted to cover as well, but for me, the Del Piero interview that was post Lazio was an interesting interview to check out, and I know it was not like a full vote of confidence there in Pirlo, and it was a bit interesting to hear him. And the one thing with Del Piero is whether it be an insight into how things left off or whatnot, but he never really holds back too much when he's talking about Juve and his thoughts and feelings. And I mean, when he was asked, could Juve do it? And his answer was, it was like he was trying to fight back, saying an all-out no, and tried to wheel it around to make it like as nice as possible for like this ex-Juve legend. But man, he to be fair, he kind of called it how it is. He says they have a lot of work to do. And if they can correct things quickly enough, that'll be the key, because they do have corrections that need to be made. And honestly, that was probably the best way he could do it. But you could see in the delay and how he was really, really processing the way he wanted to deliver that. And then the other interesting part, of course, when asked about Pirlo and if he is the right guy. Did they find the right guy? And even in that, he spoke well of Pirlo personally. But he did say how strange and bizarre it was, the fact that he's got zero experience, and also the transition. These were the three kind of key things I kind of took out of that interview, was when asked about the transition in general, saying, no, this is not a transition for Juventus. They will go after all trophies, everything like that, and they're just simply never going to be in transition, which I agree and disagree with. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on that interview. Maybe Lewis, let's start with you, and just kind of in terms of transition, for me, Juventus should always be going after all the trophies. Again, this club pulls a lot of money throughout these competitions, so they should be able to bolster a roster that allows them to compete on all fronts. However, to say it's not a transition, for me, the second you get a new manager, you're in a transition. We transitioned from Conte to Allegri. We transitioned from Allegri to Sarri. And we are still transitioning because Sarri wasn't working as far as the locker room goes. And this is a continuation of that same transition. So I believe we are in transition, but we still have a roster good enough to compete on all fronts. That's kind of how I feel. But Lewis, take us through your thoughts.
Yeah, well, first off, Del Piero has an awful poker face. Like I said before we got on the live, like he just, every time that he's asked about Juventus, and it's like he knows the response is unflattering, he like moves around and he's like,
yeah.
So that was kind of funny to watch him squirm a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the whole transition thing is the whole rah-rah Juventus thing, where it's, like at the beginning of the year, the board said, no, we're still competing for the treble, because they have to say that, right? Because it's, you're Juventus, you represent Juventus. You can't be like, nah, we're not competing for the treble, because who's going to want to come if you're, only competing for Serie A, right? You shrink the people that want to come. I think that Del Piero kind of has an aspect of that. He's a club legend. He's probably the most famous Juventus player, at least for this younger generation. So he kind of, knows that and knows, hey, I can't say that, the club's in the gutter right now, because honestly, it's not that bad. But what I would say about the transition is, this is an aging squad. It's been that way for 3 years now. It's a squad that used to play defensively, that wants to go into a more modern style, because that's what works in Europe. So even if, whether it's Sarri or it's Pirlo, it's a transition into a new style, a new system, a new way of playing, and a new guard of players. So as far as the trophies thing goes, I mean, I think what he's saying is, at least what I interpret it is, you got to get something, right? You have to get something. That doesn't mean you have to win the league every year. I mean, winning it 9 times, as ridiculous as it is, but you have to at least get the Coppa Italia, or at least make a run at the Champions League, or at least win the Scudetto. I mean, something has to give to make this season salvageable. And, like I see all the time that people say, like, oh, you have to win the league every year. Well, Man City lose it every other year. So, like, does that mean Pep Guardiola is not the right coach for Man City? Like, I mean, come on. Like,
yeah. I get it, man. I get it. And Bruno coming in here thinking he tried filtering himself as much as possible when he was asked about Pirlo. Absolutely, he did. Georg coming in saying, I'd say post 08 was a transition. I'd say we had about 4 transitions after Calciopoli, in trying to make that shift and get back to where we were. That was always going to be a massive job. And it took six years, to get to where we needed to be. Josh, your thoughts on that part of the interview with Del Piero and the whole transition thing and whatnot, and people saying that this isn't a transition?
Well, I'm going to use your favorite word, which is context. At the end of the day, we went from 9 Scudetto to transitioning to figure out how can we get our team younger, playing a more modern style. But we're not going to become like what Milan and Inter were, right, in 10th place, like we were post Calciopoli. That's not where we are. We still have like really great players. We still have like a really fighting roster. We have a bunch of money still. Like the transition is maybe not being a guarantee to win everything, but you're still fighting on all fronts. So it's adjusting your expectations a little bit. So, maybe we'll be a little bit more disappointed than we usually are. That's fine. But yeah, it's a transition in that sense, but we're still fighting for everything, which means you're not transitioning as to what every other Serie A team is going to have to do.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of was speaking to when I saw the headline. It read a lot differently than when you're listening to the interview, because I do believe they're still good enough again to go after everything. Your goals don't necessarily need to change, even though you're transitioning. But the transition is there in terms of roster. How many guys we lost, like Lewis touched on. We are not only the guys we moved, but the core of this team is transitioning to, a future of De Ligt being one of the spine. Through the middle, we're still looking for that guy who's going to be the core in the middle and whatnot. And then up top, Chiesa now starting to cement himself as one of those guys, one of those pillars that you can have in this line of moving forward for the future, right? Demiral is a guy that's going to be very, very interesting to follow, because a lot of teams are hot on him. And, there was the discussion earlier on the season about minutes and whatnot, but it's going to be interesting.
I also have a question for some of these people that you see them tweet. They transitioned out of 9 straight league titles to whatever this is. I mean, what do you expect? Because you have a changing of a guard that played a certain way, right? Chiellini, Bonucci, Barzali, Buffon, kind of that core were known for their defensive style, right? Well, they can't play forever. At some point, that changes. Just because it worked one way with those guys doesn't mean that Demiral, De Ligt are going to play the same way. It doesn't mean the coach that you hire after you move on for someone for 5 years is going to play the same way. I mean, that changes. And that's with every club. So I think that, obviously it's disappointing not to win the league, but in every sense, we brought in a new crop of players and you have to figure out what's the best way to play with them.
Oh, that's what we bought these new players and manager for. It was to change away from that old guard style, which is like when it's ingrained so deeply, that's really hard to do. Like we saw ridiculously under Sarri when things were going rough. He didn't even continue to try his style. He just completely reverted back. That's where like the locker room was lost. At least Pirlo's not doing that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Now Colin coming in saying, I think Juve transitioned but still want to win. Exactly. We did it a couple times in the last winning period. I think the other ESPN analysts are used to seeing their team transition over a period of 10 years. And that's pretty much it. And Keeney coming in saying, I think this season compared to the past 9 is that we have tried to incorporate more younger players. We've really relied on the experience in the past, and that's just it. That is part of being in a transition. You're changing that spine. And not only that, everything is changing. It's inevitable for a team. Like a team cannot do the same thing for the course of its history. It just doesn't work that way. You look at sports science now. It's changing players. Players are hitting peaks earlier than they typically were. You have to adapt to that. If you, this belief of the old experienced guys, I think you have to really balance it out. And I think if we start looking at our past Champions League bounces, it kind of showed that we didn't have enough of that energy, those legs. Man, if you think back to those outings, how big would the energy and the legs of like a guy like Chiesa, who's relentless, be in those matches? Like, I can't think of a guy that attacked those scenarios the way he's attacked everyone he's out there. So it's a shift that was needed in my personal opinion. We do have to, however, be patient and not jump on the guys, because that's part of the growing pains. And that transition to the younger guys, a guy like Kulusevski, when he makes that error against Lazio, I was more impressed with the bounce back from him in that game. Was he still one of the worst overall as far as ratings go? Yeah, but everybody else had a really strong game outside of maybe Cuadrado, but there was a lot of rust there, right? But again, that's part of the growing pains, these young guys. So we can't just jump on them and then, it's garbage. They have to go. No, like Kulishevsky is not, like, he's a talented player. He's just got to find his home. And I don't think, the second striker thing was the answer, but he allowed us the time to get the other guys fit and did it in a serviceable manner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that has to be appreciated for sure. In terms of, here's a question, a little bit off topic from Bruno, but he says, from the interview, do you think Del Piero holds resentment towards Juve from his exit? This is an interesting question. And all I can say is I don't know if there's resentment there. Definitely not towards the club. Maybe a certain particular, someone or group, because I find it strange he has not been back to the stadium since. So I don't know if in interviews it shows. I don't believe it shows in the resentment, but I can see why people would think so. But the one thing is, I think that carries him past that is he's always been amazing to Juventini and the fans. And I think that ultimately he may not be filtering for the club per se, but more for the Juventini, who have always showed him incredible amounts of love. You know what I mean? But what do you guys think in terms of that? Do you think there's some resentment there?
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's not a child. I don't think he's gonna be holding a massive grudge for his entire life against the team he gave everything for. Like you said, maybe there's a particular person that he doesn't get along with as much anymore. But at the end of the day, if anything, that's like a business professional relationship.
Yeah.
So
he's
being honest.
I think same thing. Like you said, he's known for being really kind to Juventus fans, and he loves the club. And I think if he sees something that he doesn't like, he'll say it, because if Del Piero says it, or he, if he says like, oh, that's going in the wrong direction, it holds weight. Just like, if you resent the club, he would have just shat all over that move, like he could have on ESPN, like on studio. But I think that, he filtered himself a little bit, because of his love for the club.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, even going back to it, I mean, the guy offered to play for next to nothing just to be a part, right? Just to stick around, to end there on his terms.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting comment here by AJ. I think Del Piero does not like to act as a company man. He is his own self and does not like to be a puppet to Agnelli. And again, if you go back to that time, you have this guy, this club legend, massive legend, that even just wants to be around, but he wants to do it on his terms.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he didn't want to be dictated, like, no, that's it for you. You can't do anything anymore or contribute even in the smallest amount, where he was happy to come off the bench for 10, 15 minutes, whatever, just wanted to still be around and call it like done at Juve, right? So it's an interesting thing there. I think there may possibly be a little bit of resentment, but he does a very, very good job, and I think it's because of the love of the Juventini ultimately kind of masking it.
One thing that always bothered me about that situation before we change topics is that he doesn't really appear at the stadium very much. Like he's been to a couple odd games every so often, but that's where I feel like there's a little bit of a.
Well, that's what I was alluding to there before. Is I actually can't recall him going to that stadium. I think there might have been one ceremony that he was actually there for, but I think it was a big one, and I'm trying to think of which particular one it was. But outside of that, I can't recall him like just going and dropping into like, anything, watch a match or be there for a big match. Like, it's just not happening. He's got a ton of stuff going on, so it's hard to really, log into it much. But I agree with you, Lewis. It's kind of a bit stranger that this guy hasn't been by around. But carrying on to his thoughts there, Champions League, Pirlo, the right guy, whatnot. Here we are. We're in Champions League. He was very, very filtered on Pirlo and whatnot, and he said, he's got some things to correct or whatnot. Is he the right guy? He's just basically spoke, it's strange for him to be the guy with no experience. And I know, Lewis, you wanted to touch on Pirlo and talk to that part of it. Let's hear your thoughts on Pirlo.
Yeah, I think just sometimes as a fan base, we are so quick to jump all over Pirlo, but we don't give him enough credit where it's due.
Yeah.
There's like a half a portion of the fan base that still like lives in the past. And it's like, whether it's right or wrong, like this is our present. So, I mean, I think that, it hasn't been perfect this year, but there have been, some good signs. Whether it continues or not, I mean, we'll see what the results, but, I thought the Lazio game was just, it was a masterstroke from Pirlo. I mean, play Alexandro at center back and Danilo at center mid and still get a result against a red hot Lazio team. I think it's really indicative of how far Pirlo's come, but also of what type of manager he could be. I could be totally wrong, but I think that we've seen it in second legs and things like that. Like he's learning as he goes, and there's definitely been some progression.
Yeah, absolutely. There absolutely has been progression and whatnot. I think he's right in terms of the fit, trying to help the mentality. He was a big part of the whole revolution at Juve, and I still absolutely love it that he's chosen Juve kind of over Milan, because if the discussion's there, I think he's a bigger legend to that club than he is Juve. But the fact that he's essentially ingrained himself in Juve, I absolutely love. And I never miss the opportunity to remind Milaniste that that's been happening and whatnot. But I think in terms of that cool, calm, collected presence in all kind of aspects, he's in a hot seat. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It was never going to be easy, no matter if you take the most experienced manager. It was never going to be easy, this shift, especially after what happened with Sarri. The fact that he's got zero experience, the fact that we're still in all competitions, the fact that the guys seem to be enjoying themselves, the fact that he's got the guys on his side, that's half the battle. I think it's way too early to make a call, yes or no, in terms of the results, because there's, again, I don't care who the manager is, how experienced you are, the amount of injuries we've had to battle through, the COVID, everything, absolutely everything. I think he's done a good enough job to definitely not be tolerating Pirlo out discussion.
No, not at all.
I'm talking about like disaster when I say results. Like
yeah.
We lost every game and missed the top four. Disaster. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and getting out of the top four, and this is what's interesting because it has been reported by our guest on Saturday, actually, Mirko Di Natale, which is going to be huge, but he said Pirlo's got the full backing and support of the club, no matter what the results are. And, how do you guys feel about it? If we bounce out, say we don't get into Champions League spot, are you still comfortable keeping him, or should he go?
No, I think they have to stay in the Champions League.
They do have to stay, and I think they will stay.
Because I think that they're, even with all the injuries, that squad's good enough to stay in the top four.
Yeah.
One biggest thing here, and this is like even all the comparisons back to Sarri, was the Serie A. Like every team in the Serie A is not only like their team and rosters are better, they're actually playing to form. Whereas last year, like it was a competition to see who could bottle it the most.
Yeah.
It wasn't people playing up to form. It was like all the teams were playing horribly. Like if Sarri's Juve was in this Serie A, I don't think they'd be doing.
They'd be right where we are.
They'd be worse than where we are, to be honest, I think.
But let's say, I know that we believe they will finish there. Okay. And that's, I don't think we're missing out on chances. But let's hypothetically say we do. You guys think Pirlo should go out if we don't make a Champions League spot?
Yeah, I don't. That's too far of a drop. I think like if you imagine like the economic collapse would happen if we missed the Champions League, you'd lose at least Ronaldo. You'd probably lose De Ligt. Mina would have a fit if we missed the Champions League.
Yeah. So, and this is where I think it becomes very, very, very tough, because I think there's a fine line between um, setting the standard, and are we letting the standard drop, or like if you're just trying to put it solely on him, is that necessarily the best? Is that the best route? I think, and that's where I
Yeah.
think it's tough right now, is trying to figure out exactly why. Try to pinpoint why. And I think if we put it solely on him, it might be a little tough if we look in terms of roster or whatnot. I do think he's a bit stubborn at times, which could kind of somewhat be his downfall. And I think it might be indicative, depending on what happens tonight, because you have, these projected lineups that are starting to look an awful lot familiar when you started to see a glimpse of something we could possibly do. Granted that he's not going to have Danilo, who's out with suspension. Bentancur is out with COVID. Dybala, all of a sudden now we don't even have any talks about Dybala and the return time. It went from 15 to 20 days, then it was another 15 to 20 days, and then all of a sudden he's looking for more consultations. Now we don't even have a date anymore, so that whole thing's weird. But, factoring this in, if he goes back to a 4-4-2, this projected lineup, I do, however, see that Demiral and Bonucci were last tested in training. So that could end up being the back two. It was originally rumored that it would be Chiellini and Bonucci. Sandro out on the left. Midfield projected of Artur, Weston McKennie, and Rabiot. Chiesa out there, and then Morata, Ronaldo up top. Do you guys, if he were to go back to this 4-4-2, this little hybrid shift into the attack, do you guys think he could build off of what happened to Lazio? Like, how do you guys feel in terms of the projected lineup and what we need to do there? Let's start off with if Chiellini and Bonucci would have played, and Demiral, Bonucci. Let's start off with center back pairings. Do you think he's going safe? Like, you think he's getting into old habits? How do you guys feel?
I'm concerned if he does Chiellini, Bonucci, because both of them have been out for quite a while. Like, Bonucci played 20 minutes, and that was it, if he made 20 minutes. I'm concerned if he does that route. Demiral's been playing well, and he's played a lot. So I don't know. I wouldn't want him to bench Demiral at all. I'd rather put Bonucci next to him just because he is a little fitter, and I don't know, at this stage, a little more confident having him next to Demiral just on fitness alone. And because he's an opposite, like Chiellini and Demiral are so similar. Like, they're both like grounded, just like take the person out no matter what. Bonucci's a little bit more like Delict in the composure side of things. So it's a better balance.
Yeah. Lewis, your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I wouldn't risk Chiellini. I mean, the big thing tonight is that if Chiellini isn't 100%, don't play him, because we know what happens when that happens. He usually pulls up after 15 minutes, and we have to take him out.
That's true as well.
And we lose substitution. It throws everything into chaos. So I think, as much as I love Chiellini, give him some time. Hopefully he'll be fit by the weekend. Bring him back at the weekend against Cagliari. But play it safe. Align Demiral. I'd still pick Sandro ahead of Bernardeschi, just because I think having him off the bench would be great as an impact sub. To have that guy kind of come in, give us some width, maybe more attacking. But the hybrid 4-4-2 works with me. I think when it works very well. So
yeah, I was gonna say on that, I don't even know if I'd want to go 4-3-3 with Ronaldo in the lineup, because he's not Ronaldo of like 8 years ago. And when we use that 4-4-2 with him with Morata up top, it does do well, so long as they get the proper wing back support in the game.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I love seeing the comments here from everybody joining live, and by all means, get them in. I do want to go back just quickly to AJ's comment, because he says there should be some expectations in terms of results. We can't tell Pirlo, don't worry about results. I agree. However, again, how does it happen? Are we out by like a point? Like, again, do all of a sudden, do we even finish with this healthy roster throughout the season? All of a sudden, does he get bombarded again? Like, there is some context there. Yeah. Quality of players. do we simply just like are the guys we have just simply not enough? For me, top four, this roster has to happen, and I think it will. I think it will. And I think there's a fine line there, but outside of Champions League, yeah, you could probably make that call, but I think he's done well enough to actually like make it a discussion. Whereas anybody prior, like if they didn't reach top four, I'd be like, oh no, like that's unacceptable, right?
I would argue.
I think we've seen quite a bit of good from him that we can actually build off, and I think it just makes it a more interesting discussion, right?
I would argue the reason Agnelli can come out and say that, or the board can come out and say that, is because Pirlo's given them enough where they're confident he'll make top four, that they're not concerned of it happening. Yeah. Which is, to me, a good thing. Like, they know he's not going to take his foot off the throttle just because they're giving him backing, because he's a winner. And, like, that's fully ingrained in his mentality. He's not going to be like, oh, I can lose some games and it'll be calm. Like he's gonna still go for it.
Also, off of both your points, if we win our game in hand, we're a point off AC Milan in second. So if you finish second, you flip this tie, and you win the Coppa Italia for your worst year in 10 years, that is not bad at all.
Yeah,
that's a sackable offense.
Absolutely. And now let's get into these players, okay? Because there's just so much going on. And I love it. And keep the comments coming, guys, in the chat. Berna. Where does Berna fall into this? Tony G's coming in saying Berna's in a great moment, and I would put him inside instead of Sandro if we do go with the 4-4-2. This is interesting. There was also a few that I saw saying keep Sandro and Demiral at the back and use Berna again as that outside. And this is interesting, you know, and there's still a lot, and I understand why, that don't have enough faith in Berna in this moment and whatnot. This is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one. I think factor in the opponent, how they play, very strong on the outsides. Sandro is noticeably more comfortable inside. And I think it's because he can reserve much more amounts of energy rather than being on that outside, because there's one thing that nobody can deny in Sandro is that he's lost that endurance and that stamina over the years, and probably because we ran him ragged. But it's kind of not there. So how do you guys feel in terms of Bernardeschi and your confidence in him?
I think with those people, well, Bernardeschi, I say like I really like him in the left wing back role. I mean, for even since like the start of 2021, he a couple good performances against Merda Milan in the Coppa Italia. He's been bright in a few games that he's played there, especially recently. You know, he's really made an impact. But I think what people are getting wrong about the lineup is you're forgetting that there's no Danilo tonight. Yeah. So that hybrid, Sandro is basically playing Danilo's role. So he becomes part of the back three when, you know, we move forward. So I think that is the important thing tonight, and that's why we'll see Sandro ahead of Bernardeschi, is because when it goes to a hybrid, Bernardeschi can't play as a center back.
Yeah.
That as well is Danilo's not playing center mid to cover defensively, because he did that so well in the last game where it helped Berna, and probably Sandro playing a bit of a different role as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And Keeney coming in saying I'd keep three at the back: Bonucci, Demiral, and Sandro. And it's interesting because for me, I'm really questioning if the transition of playing out that style in the way we have and taking one of those outsides and then moving him up in the trequartista, I'm really questioning if that's going to be as smooth and as strong, other than what Pirlo just showed us against Lazio, which I feel brings the support and the attack naturally in a more natural fashion. You still get your three at the back because you relax that one central midfielder, right? Like he was using Danilo. I don't know if Artur is the right profile in that certain spot. He would be in terms of possession, escaping the press, and ball movement, but I don't know if he's the right guy when it comes to the defensive aspect. But what that would do is allow those outside backs to support your two midfielders ahead of them, could support the attack, and that allows you to create a more fluid front three, which in this one should be Chiesa, Morata, and CR, which I think would be devastating, and we need to bury Porto So I think there's an interesting discussion there when we do this shift and this transition. It worries me at the spaces we allow for teams to get behind and then attack a flank. And if all of a sudden we're going to have Sandro there, I think he's going to take himself out of that match if he plays it as a true outside to be able to support properly.
Yeah,
It's an interesting scenario. And with the guys at the back, we know Demiral and Bonucci are now being tested. I think that was a tough call as well. De Ligt is in the lineup sheet, but obviously he's not good to go because you would figure 100% De Ligt would be in the lineup. So that tells me he still can't go, obviously. Demiral and Chiellini, you lose that ball movement. If you go with that pairing, you guys touched on it. Chiellini, how many minutes can you give us? Then if you go Demiral and Sandro, again, I think Sandro's more comfortable there, but I question him as a leader. You know what I mean? So where does the leadership come from? If you go Bonucci and Demiral, here's the thing, which might happen today. It's been said by most and believed by most that Bonucci needs a guy like Chiellini next to him, or at least Buffon in behind. It's very, very interesting, and it's a tough little combination. For me personally, I think we're fine, and I'm not worried about the back, to be honest with you. Yeah. What I'm more concerned with is the fluidity from defending to attack and getting Chiesa in the danger zone more frequently. And if we do this standard 4-4-2, does he waste most of his time in that neutral zone? You know what I mean? I want to see him up top. That's the biggest thing for me. And I want to see the mentality and approach. I think we're in good hands with any combination you put at the back, to be honest. I don't think that's going to be our downfall.
Well, yeah. I think having Cuadrado playing almost behind Chiesa kind of keeps him forward because Cuadrado will play in that next tier right along the midfielders, kind of behind him. So I think having them over top of each other helps a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. And I think that Lazio, again, it would have been nice if he could have built off that and tried it a little bit earlier, just to get some more answers. Giuseppe, just Juve congratulating us with the AJC team. Giuseppe, thanks for joining. And, of course, the team, for those of you that didn't see the announcement yesterday, happy to bring in Lewis aboard as a common guest, as well as Eric Acerno-Gibbs, Francisco, Antonio Tondo, Colin, Power, Luca Natale, and Omar. Just bringing in common guests, trying to cover all angles and all opinions moving in the future. And what does that mean for all the other Juventini that just want to join? Absolutely nothing changes. Inclusivity remains the same. Simply reach out. It's just now we make a fun panel like we got rolling today. So thanks, Giuseppe, for the shout there. Eric Gibbs coming in. Champions League matches aren't played, they are won. You play them without fear. I'd be pretty disappointed if he resorted back to the 4-4-2 hybrid as opposed to what he created last week. Wow. So, and this is why I just love Eric and the comments. He is just so straight to his point and how he sees them, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Do you think that would be him, Pirlo, playing it safe, going back to this other way? Do you think he should go to it? I think it's very, very tough. A very, very tough call. I personally would like to see that setup because I think it sets us up to attack more, which we need. How do you guys feel about Eric's comment? And what do you think?
The difference there is that hybrid works because Danilo plays at center defensive mid and he's not available today. And that changes a ton of it. Who plays that position? That's his role. Like, it's not Sandro's role either. Bonucci's not playing center defensive mid anytime soon. Like, who plays that role? The hybrid is great, but if you're talking a lot of factors here. You're saying that, it was great in theory, but Danilo kind of makes that work because he sits right in front of the defense. I mean, with Arthur and Rabiot and McKennie, there's no one really to do that. So I think that while I love the hybrid, this is kind of going back to what you have based on who's available and who isn't. And this worked very well in January, by the way.
I'm just not entirely too concerned about Porto's attack, to be honest with you. Even if I look back to the first match, I'm not terribly concerned about their attack. And if we wanted to go in that same setup like we did against Lazio, I'd be fine with Artur playing in that role and doing that, even if he may lack a bit of the defensive requirements, because Porto is strong at attacking up the flanks anyways. And I feel like if we went in that typical setup, we would be putting them under, and they'd find it hard to be really counter or going at that the flank attack as well. I think they'd almost have to adopt a different type of build-up in their own play if we were able to do that. Because I think, number one, I saw the press look as cohesive as it ever has in quite some time in that setup, because we didn't have a guy running from a wide trying to get into a role and a position where naturally it should come through just centrally. You know what I mean? Like, we're asking this big shift, and it's very hard to keep a press steady and level when you've got a hybrid setup right out of the midfield. So changing that and making that hybrid role closer to the back, that naturally helps us defensively, and it really doesn't affect anything offensively. And it allowed Rabiot, it allowed Ramsey freedom to move forward and get involved. The other thing is Weston McKennie will not be starting this match. So it looks like it is going to be Ramsey and Rabiot again. And honestly, I'm fine with that. We need goals. Ramsey gives you that creative edge and whatnot moving forward. Weston McKennie probably get in there in the second half. How do you guys feel about that in that midfield?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. Also, too, as far as the formation goes, I mean, it's not necessarily a guarantee we'll actually see a 4-4-2, because
we never do.
And how it shows up on the pitch are usually two different things.
Exactly.
But as far as the midfield goes, I think that's probably the best route to go. I mean, obviously, Arthur isn't 100% fit, but Ramsey and Rabiot are. So, naturally sit McKennie and bring him on for some extra energy in the last 30 minutes. Yeah. Seems like the best he can give us now is as a substitute at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, as long as Rabiot plays like he did against Lazio, but he's so hot and cold with that. But it's what we have. There's not really anything else we could do to change it.
Yeah, it's tough too. And again, I saw that set up a little bit differently, but I see in the comments everyone's talking about this 4-2-3-1, and even Giuseppe saying it's impossible to repeat with Ronaldo on the pitch, because there's no way that he will play that role where the defense is kind of called into to play there. And you saw a bit of a drop-off against Lazio too when he entered the pitch, because you lose that. Right? And the question, I had a couple interesting questions after that last match. And it was, number one, does a guy like Rabiot have that hit if CR is in the area? Does he even have that hit? The other one is, does the second goal even take place if Ronaldo is in that spot rather than Chiesa? Coming out of that defense and the way the pressure Chiesa put on that player to get that error, and then, of course, intercept it, take it away, and then slot it to Morata, who finished. Does that even happen with Ronaldo out there? He is very conservative with his energy in the defensive phase. That's about as nice as I could put it there. But he is, right? So that's another factor if we go to this other setup. If you've got them set up in a top two with Ronaldo, that kind of doesn't become a factor.
It's just a completely different game. That's why I said I don't think with Ronaldo you play a 4-3-3, because he can't be out wide. He needs to be up top, which at least that hybrid formation lets him stay close to Morata.
Yeah. So the only other workaround would be in the defensive phase, him slotting up top, becoming the one, because in the defensive phase that becomes essentially like a 5-4-1 the way we had it set up against Lazio, right? So essentially Ronaldo would have to slot out to be that one. And again, you've got a little bit of a workaround there, because if he's not the deepest guy there, he's not going to get back.
Unless you're going to tell Rabiot to play kind of like Matuidi and just try and just cover. That's the only way you can do it, and I don't know if that's necessarily his strong suit. So
No.
Yeah. So, we talk about this one. I think Porto's going to be without Pepe at the back. I think they have another guy missing as well. So it's going to be interesting. But Pirlo, are they going to park the bus? And he says, well, if they're going to park it, we're going to force them to move it. So I like that.
yeah,
But it's going to – I got to see it. And Tony's coming in basically, if everyone gives 150%, we will win regardless of the formation. Grinta is what we need. And that was the one thing, this thing with Grinta and overcoming formations and all that. I think it's a little bit of combination of everything. I think when you get the guys in the right roles and the right spots, I think naturally, as they feel more comfortable, even the fight and everything picks up. You know what I mean? But they have to have the right approach in this one. There's no doubt about it. And let's start getting to how we feel this match is gonna go. We don't need to necessarily jump right into predictions, but we can. I've been saying for a while, Juve will make it through. I feel confident in saying that. I feel confident for many, many reasons. I'm also safekeeping this I've been safekeeping this thing for Juve. Okay, so, I'm waiting for them to just win it, and then I'll deliver it personally for the final. And be standing there. But guys, how do we feel about this one? And everybody that's joined us live, is Juve getting the job done?
As much as I like to joke around about Juventus making my life miserable in Europe, I think we get it done tonight. But the key is, I think you have to get that goal early, because Juventus have this ever-looming European, hangover. So you can't shoot yourself in the foot. You got to get the goal early. And I think we'll cruise if we get the goal early.
Part of me wants us to get a penalty not given, just so they get a little spark of anger. Because against Lazio, honestly, I think that's where the whole spark is, when we didn't get that penalty, and they were that's when they picked up the tempo for the rest of the game. So
yeah, and there's a good edge about this team of late. I mean, you heard the post-match of the Lazio game, Demiral turning to the opposing bench and yelling, "We are Juventus," or Morata looking in the camera and saying, "If you're not on board, get the fuck out." All that stuff. That energy is good right now. So I think that, the players, that they can feed off that from the last game and feed off everyone telling you that you're going to get knocked out by Porto and that the season's a waste and all this stuff. Use that. And if they feed off that, we'll cruise tonight.
Yeah. And you know what? This is one of the things, we talk about that attitude. We talk about that moment Josh brings up where the clear PK was not given. And then you start looking at this team, and we want that drive. All the comments in the live here about the green and whatnot. And, for me, you keep that rolling with the catalysts, the catalysts that bring that. Morata is one. Chiesa, eyes will be on Chiesa. Get him in a position to put Porto under and get him in that position frequently. You've got Demiral. This is why I would have went with Demiral in there, because he has that attitude right now, and he's got that energy that the guys need to feed off. You keep it rolling with the guys that are bringing that. You have to. So, and Ronaldo, we need the Ronaldo and the attitude that was similar to Atletico Madrid. We need that Ronaldo. If things don't go right in the first 15, 20 minutes, I absolutely cannot take sulking of any means. Not from him. Not from any of the guys. He needs to be the guy everybody's feeding off of and looking to, but again, not relying on.
Yeah.
So if we get in scenarios where guys get line of sight on goal, I want them to have full confidence to have the rips like Rabiot did in the match against Lazio. Morata finishing, regardless of where CR7 is placed, if it's not clear and obvious or if he doesn't see him. I want them to all play with confidence and drive and have faith in one another. So I got to see that. But the catalyst, all eyes, Morata, CR, Chiesa, Demiral. They're going to have to be the heart, and everyone's going to have to feed off of those guys and what they bring. I do think Juve is going to get the job done. I also think it was huge playing Lazio before this match.
Yes.
So you have some that feel that maybe, an easier match would have been better, whatnot. I disagree. I think that was the perfect match to have to play ahead of this one. And the fact that we got it done the way we did. And another thing, Lewis and I talked about it on the Clubhouse chat yesterday. By the way, for those of you that are on iOS right now, Clubhouse will eventually open up to Android. But we got some good Juve chats sparking up randomly. So add the Clubhouse app and you can get some extra chats. And the nice thing about that, too, it's open to everybody to join and chat as well. So it's really, really cool. But we were talking about this yesterday, Lewis. And it's basically that Juventus facing these matches before and whatnot, and getting that drive, getting that energy. People that would say they need, to play like a lesser opponent and whatnot. I think there's a fine line when you're trying to bring up that identity of Juve past. You know what I mean? And always wanting, these lighter games, and even AJ touches on it. If we make it to the quarters, I hope we draw City or Bayern, because he hates facing the likes of Porto, Lyon in Champions League. And, we had this talk that Juve, they get a different feeling, and you almost set yourself up when you're playing a team where you're heavily favored to take. You know what I mean? And you almost play down or whatnot. So if you're already trying to regain an identity or whatnot, you want to play the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to take on the best. You want to keep it rolling. You want to bring yourselves up. And I can't help but feeling the same way, that you almost want to draw that team and just be like, yeah, let's go. Because then at least you can bank on the guys getting up for those matches. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel?
I agree. Juventus as a whole has never, ever liked, playing down a goal. And they have issues with mentality in Europe. So I think that part of the problem with a smaller club is they play it safe, because it's like, hey, like we play it this way, we'll get like a 2-0 win, and that's good enough. And then they have a stupid mistake and they go down a goal and it shoots themselves in the foot, right? They go into panic mode. But against the bigger clubs, it's more of we're not expected to beat Man City. So like it's kind of like a repressed, it's like, all right, let's give it what we got. We saw a couple years ago with Atletico Madrid and Ajax, where they were in the first leg and they were absolutely shell shocked, and then in the second leg they came out a little bit better. So I think that's part of the problem, is it all comes down to mentality for Juventus. And I think sometimes against the smaller opponents, they overthink it because they know that they're the favorite, and the pressure becomes more, and that looming, we need to win the Champions League, just kind of hangs over them.
Yeah, that's another thing that's interesting to discuss and talk about is, do you feel that affects the guys, this fact that this Champions League and this tournament and the history, and almost, I don't want to call it a curse, but that negative feeling towards this tournament and just these constant expectations. Josh, you think that weighs heavily on our players?
I mean, I'm sure it does. It's a pretty big thing. Like, if they go out, they know that it's not just going to be in their heads disappointed. It's like they're going to get hell from everybody around them as well. So I'm sure it plays like a major pressuring role. I think the biggest thing is when you play a big team, you're not like that. You don't concern about the Champions League. It's like your only concern is, holy crap, we need to beat these guys and get through. So it shifts their focus fully. Whereas when it's like a Porto, they think ahead to the next game way too easily.
So you're thinking that, yeah, they're kind of counting their chips a little too early at the table there. Yeah, all right. So going back to the Pirlo interview, this was another part that kind of stood out to me, is where he said that fans, they've become bored with the Scudetto. It's like, oh yeah, we won another domestic title, that's boring, whatever. And he says they want the Champions League. It has to be the Champions League, and number one, I don't find it boring to win the Scudetto. I will never find it boring. I do agree that the natural progression of dominating domestically is Europe. I just can't help, when you look back through these years and the Champions League and whatnot, you've got to be lucky, and I can't help but feel our luck is just shit. Like in this tournament, it really is. Like our luck is just miserable. But man, I can't help but feel like when we've had those matchups where you're like, oh, this could be bad for Juve, they get it done,
Yeah.
They do better than the underdog.
These last two outings were against teams that we all felt pretty strong about, We're like, oh, great draw. I remember this all the time. It's like, great draw for Juventus. Fuck, I'm not so sure anymore, We might be better off just drawing the guns and saying, hey, let's go, because at least you can bank on the guys being there 100%. So it's going to be very, very interesting. MJ coming in saying, historically, Juve has always brought down or up their game according to opponents. That's the beauty of being a Juve fan. It's always an exciting, close game. That might be
exciting. We played down. It's not exciting. Right? Crap.
It's the Italian way. I mean, it's always been that way with the Italians in general. Remember when we went to Berlin, 2015? We had the win on the last group stage. It was like a 4-2 thriller against Olympiacos.
Yeah.
That's the Juventus way, or the 1-0 against Monaco that I forgot existed till today.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And now for everybody that is joining, I want to ask you guys a quick question before we get into the prediction phases. Are you guys bored of winning Scudetti? If you are, my God, don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted.
Oh, no.
Okay?
I think they're looking so much at recency bias. So I'm sure you guys have been fans of Juve since Juve have been really great and really bad.
Yeah.
I've only really started watching Juve since this whole streak began. I'm a younger generation, right? So I can understand the feeling of, oh, people are getting bored of the Scudetto because it's all you ever know, right? I haven't seen Juve struggle either. That doesn't mean I'm bored of Scudetto. I want to win it all the time.
Thank you. I love you for that, because I have that conversation with people on Twitter all the time where they'll tell me they're tired of the Scudetto, and I'll be like, oh, so you came on when Conte joined. Like it's you who missed the banter years, right?
Yeah.
And even like when we'll say like, hey, like, if Pirlo gets second, it's a good job. Doesn't mean we're not disappointed about not winning the Scudetto. It sucks. I wish we could win it every year. It gives me so much joy to see our rival fans miserable, but no trophy is less important than the other, in my opinion.
Yeah. The other thing is, man, I look back to like squads Juve had rolling through the 90s that didn't get the job done as far as the Scudetto goes. And honestly, like incredible teams. And you just can't take it for granted. And it makes winning it all that much sweeter when you're beating like stacked teams too. Like when that league was the balls back in the 90s, like winning the Scudetto was massive, so I could see a bit of this perception, I guess, of Serie A or whatnot when a team takes it so many times consecutively, right? But yeah, I cannot take it for granted. But
I can see the argument though that it's lost its prestige, not just because we've won it every year, but because the other teams have been so poor, right? At least like Bayern in the Bundesliga, like when they were winning everything, Dortmund was also competing at a high level. Like they made the Champions League final, and yeah, it kind of dropped off, but you could still say the competition was there. on an international level.
Yeah,
But
I think the biggest thing with Serie A, though, is just that the Milan clubs were such a shit show for quite some time, right? Because all that happened was the teams changed. The teams did this flux of rotation, and the teams that were the ones that were closest aren't the ones that are in the financial, in that financial prowess to be making that step, right? So they were always limited, right? The Milan clubs are finally starting to get things going, and the league actually needs that
better.
I could do without one of those Milan clubs for sure, but and hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe it happens. They're not playing any players, they're not paying their players, they're not paying for transfer fees.
Man.
Hell, we can all go out there and buy players like that. Look, I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to take that guy. Yeah, sure. Oh, what, we have to pay? Weird. The league needs those top teams to be the top teams. And also, if you would have said years ago that Atalanta would be consistently making it in Champions League, everybody would probably say, no, dude, you're crazy, right? But these teams are making that jump, but they're limited financially too. But Atlanta does very, very well in their transfers.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Atlanta does.
But they have no debt, right? They're one of them and Napoli are the only teams that are very low or have no debt.
Yeah, it's incredible, Atlanta, what they've been able to do, man. Really, really good moves, and that Romero deal kills me because I thought that we would be able to bring him back, and I had no idea that we had an 18 million euro buyout that Atalanta has option on, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Most stupid deal.
In a little defense, the Romero we see now is not the Romero who played last year at Genoa.
It's not.
However, the Romero we saw last year, I was making the show then, was easily good enough to come in and step into the Rugani 4th or 5th CB role.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah. Well, that is what we paid. What, 25 million, and then at the end of the season, we're giving him the 16 million buyout. That's the most stupid part of it for me. It was like they're taking their zero on it.
Al, what you're saying about the Scudetto, one last thing is that, I think that Juventus fans, at least me, are frustrated about how we got to, who we got in the Champions League final. You look at some of the other finals, and it's like any other opponent but Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, or but Real Madrid, who was in the middle of winning 4 out of 5. It's like, are you shitting me? The 2 times we got there, we got the 2 toughest opponents, it's frustrating,
Yeah, it is frustrating, but again, there's nothing you can do but ride it up.
Yeah.
Today's match day, big match. I think we are going to get it done. I want to throw it out now. Everybody joining live, okay? Get your predictions in right now. It's prediction time. We kind of know a rough guideline as to what the lineup's going to be for Juve, okay? It does appear that it's going to be Demiral and Bonucci at the back. Weston McKennie will not be starting in the midfield. So most likely you're going to end up with Arthur, Ramsey, and Rabiot in there. Chiesa is going to be out there. Morata's out there. CR7, Mr. Champions League, is out there. Let's get the predictions going. Juventus have won their previous 2 home games against Porto in the UEFA Champions League. 3-1 in 2001-2002 and 1-0 in 2016-2017. Okay, Juventus have won each of their last 4 UEFA Champions League last 16 second leg ties against Lyon and against Atletico Madrid, Spurs, and Porto. Guys, prediction time. Vishwa G coming in with my man with the 3-1. Okay, Tony throwing out the 4-1 thrashing. Man, Lewis will be absolutely shit-faced if that happens. And Keeney coming in with the 3-0. Morata, Ronaldo, and Ramsey. MJ, 4-1 Juve. I absolutely love this. And AJ, never disappointing. Mr. Positivity. 1-2 Porto. But he's trying to reverse the streak, and I know what he's doing, but he's got to be consistent. Guys, predictions. Okay, let's kick it off with Josh. What is your prediction for this match?
I can say it's definitely not going to be 1-0. I do not see that happening at all. It's so hard. My heart is telling me 3-1. Last time I was on the show, though, we scored 4 goals, so maybe I'll go 4-1, and we'll just continue
4-1.
with that.
Holy shit, we're gonna get a lot of goals again. Let's go, Lewis. And Colin coming in here saying, does Lewis still call Berna getting the winner? You made that call a couple matches ago, eh?
Yes, I've been calling it for like 4 matches. But
Eventually.
we're going to get a 2-0 victory. Ronaldo's going to score, and Berna's going to score off the bench, just for you, Colin.
I also believe it's going to be 2-0. I think it's going to be a 2-0 victory for Juventus. We're going to get the job done, and we're going to move on. We're going to continue building off the Lazio match. The guys will have the right attitude. Cristiano Ronaldo will be a monster. The guys all picked up a boost, picked up a lift with the guys that are coming back. I know that a lot of them are still not at 100%, but we have more than enough to overcome Porto. Chiesa will be an absolute driving force. 2-0 for me. Juve gets the job done. Liam coming in. No way Tech concedes today. He should be playing angry off the first leg. 2 or 3-0 for Juve from Liam, and Animesh coming in with another 2-0. And Tony reiterating, we need a big game from Szczesny. I think all the guys will feed off that last match. I think it was primed to play off Lazio. I agree with Vijay. We will know in the first 20 minutes how this game will go, and I anticipate Juve jumping off in ready to go into overdrive quickly and take it to them.
I think one thing about this game that gives me a lot of like really good vibes is the fact that Pepe is not playing, and we have Ronaldo and Morata up top. So I feel like Pepe is there really stand out, like especially when it comes to defending crosses. So as long as Cuadrado and Chiesa have a good crossing game, I feel like we can get a lot more out of this. It reminds me of when Madrid lost Ramos and we scored those like 3 headers against them. It gives me that kind of vibe.
Absolutely. And the other thing is to how key Morata is to this 11 and what he does. He is an absolute beast. But the biggest thing, he was slumping. What got him out of that slump? Lewis touched on it earlier. The willingness to be that catalyst that says to all that are doubting Juve, if you're not going to support us or you're going to not believe in us, don't bother turning on the TV. And it sparked this guy into the beast we need. And I see that rolling on. The guys are in the right frame of mind to attack this with everything they have. And I think they do. And I say they're going to get the job done. Let's go. I'm ready to watch this thing. I'm going to be working, and I wish I wasn't, because I got a fridge full of beer and I would be right there doing a live stream, probably with Lewis, so that we could just be crushing those beers, watching this one. But I think we're going to have a lot to celebrate, and we're going to go on in the tournament. Regardless if Antonio is giving me shit or not for touching this trophy, it's coming home, brother. It's coming home. Never give up the faith. I said this. I've been saying it for the past week. Whatever you do, never stop believing, okay?
If it's coming home, that means we're not going to win it this year.
Stop. Whatever, man. Whatever. It's gonna.
Man, just eat that damn trophy. Let's just get rid of the stupid curse. Maybe you can keep it locked inside your gut.
It's gonna happen, everybody. Okay. I've got to see another one. At least one more. I gotta give you at least one more.
You have to see one.
Yeah. How beautiful would it be if we can get the Champions League in the season that we don't win the Serie A, when everyone's like doubting it completely?
There's the trade-off, and you know what? Fine with it. You know. But yeah, no, I got good vibes today, guys. Everybody enjoy the match, okay? And let's hope the boys get her done. We all seem to believe they will. It's up to them. I think they'll approach it in the right way, and I see us getting it done. And thank you to my guest, Josh. Thank you to Lewis. You guys have been awesome. Thanks to everybody who took part in the live. Enjoy the match. Obviously, be back tomorrow, same time, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, with a post-match podcast where I'll be joined by Colin and a first-time guest making his debut, Yaman, which will be awesome. He's got some controversial takes, to say the least, so it'll be a fun one for sure. Guys, enjoy the match, and hopefully we have a quarterfinal to celebrate reaching. As always, Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Till next time, ciao.